Welcome, boys. In this video, we're going to be talking insurance. Now, this video was inspired / suggested by my boy Chuck over at Panzer Platform. He'd recently done a video on the insurance that he pays on his Crown Vic and his Mercury. His policy is up for renewal soon. He was inquiring what kind of insurance rates we got on our cars. And we had a brief dialogue in the comments section about what I pay for my regular cars, and then I had just kind of mentioned in passing about the collector car insurance I have on my Corvette and Camaro and how I got a pretty sweet deal on that. And he wasn't sure what that was and suggested I do a video on it. So that's what I am going to do. So I figure logistically the best way to go about this video is I'll discuss the regular insurance first, and then that'll kind of move from there into what I pay for the collector car insurance on the Vet and the Camaro, and then about the licensing I do on the Vet also. So first of all, see, just like my boy here, I won't be in a nice well-lit garage, but we'll try this outside. I even have myself a little pointer. So this is just the basic information and the coverage I have across all my vehicles. I do have, and these are going to be the three normal daily driver vehicles, the Neon, the Crown Vic, and the BMW. And these cars, they just have regular insurance, full coverage insurance, so they have the collision and the comprehensive on it. And then this first part is just the coverage we have across all the vehicles. So we have the bodily injury and liability, $50,000 per person. I pay $387, and that's every 6 months. This is a 6-month policy, or $100,000 per incident. Property damage liability is up to $50,000 per incident. I pay $211 for that. Medical payments, $1,000 per person. I pay $21 for that. Uninsured motorist bodily injury, $50,000 per person, $100 per incident. I pay $98 every 6 months for that. And my underinsured motorist bodily injury, again, $50 per person, $100 per incident. I pay $14 every 6 months for that. So that's all the coverage across all the vehicles. Now for the vehicles themselves, the BMW, the collision for that is only $122 every 6 months, and for the comp it is $80 every 6 months. So that's pretty reasonable in and of itself. The Neon collision on that is $100 every 6 months. And we do pay $46 for comprehensive on that guy. And the Crown Vic, we're at $57 every 6 months for a collision. Comp is $33, and that's for $500 deductibles on all of them. So now, with that said, why do I even have full coverage insurance on all these old cars, you ask? Well, I live in the city. A lot of uninsured motorists drive around here, and yeah, I get in collisions with them quite frequently. And sometimes they hang around and don't drive off immediately, but a lot of times they do. But even when they do hang around, since they don't have insurance and they don't have an actual accurate address, I've never successfully sued any of them. And even when my insurance company are supposed to be suing them on my behalf, they never do that either for some reason. So I'm always out my $500 for the deductible, and I would be out an entire car or more in repairs. If I didn't have that, just like with the BMW, that one actually has to get repaired this summer because it was damaged a year and a half ago by an uninsured motorist, and I did not have full coverage at that time. I had liability only because I assumed if I get smoked by somebody, they'll have insurance and theirs will pay for it, and that didn't happen. So, learning our lesson, it is now cheaper just to pay out for the insurance. Now that said, that is the three regular cars. So we're going to move on to my collector cars. So the first vehicle we have here is our 93 Corvette, and this is categorized as an antique / classic. So the agreed amount on that is 15 grand. So me and the insurance company sat down and we came to the agreement that the car was worth 15 grand. And that was 10 years ago when I first bought the car. I actually might have bought it 11 years ago. Actually, I think somewhere in my paperwork it'll show me the date of actual purchase of that car. But let's say 10 or 11 years ago, we agreed that it's 15,000. As you can see, to this day, it is still considered valued at 15,000. So here's where this collector car insurance thing, how this kind of works. So you agree that the car is worth 15 grand. The car gets totaled out or stolen, less my deductible, I get a $15,000 check, and then presumably I can go buy a new one. Now, how is this different than regular insurance, you ask? Well, the insurance company on your regular insurance determines what they value your car at. So let's say the BMW gets smashed up. Let's say I pay $2,500 for the car. Let's say the next closest one I can buy is like 5 grand. They say, well, you know what? It wasn't really in all that good a condition, we don't think. Had a bunch of miles on it. We'll give you like 3 grand for it. And what are you going to do with that? Are you going to go out and be able to buy a new BMW? No, you can't. So this collector car insurance is essentially shielding you from the insurance company saying what they think your car is worth. This, you actually have some say-so, some input on what you say your car is worth. And then when they agree upon that, that's what you get paid if it gets smashed up. And for 15 grand, a C4 Corvette, I think a really good one's probably worth maybe like 12. I mean, maybe there's a mint one somewhere worth 15 or maybe even more, I don't know. But the bottom line is if my C4 gets smashed up or stolen or burned up in a riot, I can go buy, at the very least, another C4 comparable to mine. And honestly, I could probably get maybe a C5, something slightly newer for that price. And then I would just insure it the same way, collector car. Now, with that said, there is a couple of restrictions, but we'll kind of lead into that a little bit later. Now, the Camaro, as you can see, that is not classified as an antique. That's classified as an exotic. The car, I believe, is not old enough yet to be considered an antique or classic, so we'll revisit that once the car ages a bit. It's only 10 years old. But once it ages, we'll go ahead and revisit that, and then maybe I can get the dollar amount paid on that I'm paying premium-wise down. But we've agreed that that car is worth $18,000, and I can probably get another one for about $18,000. I probably should have went maybe a scotch higher, but I anticipate that car actually dropping in value as time goes on. I mean, assuming everybody doesn't smash all theirs up and then they become super rare. So assuming everybody doesn't wreck them all, they stay in operation, 18 grand, and 5 years from now, we still agreed 18 grand, so I'll get 18 grand out of it. Although with the way inflation's going to be going up soon, might want to revisit that sooner rather than later. Same with the vet, but we'll burn that bridge when we get there. Now, so down to this, which we went over with on the other car. This is what I'm paying annually now. So this policy renews once a year, and now I'm paying this dollar amount annually for these same coverages. 50,000 bodily injury, 50,000 property damage, 2,000 med pay, 50,000 uninsured, 50,000 underinsured, other than collision 500 deductible, and collision of 500 deductible. So now if we kind of compare that with what we were paying earlier, $23, $387, $19, $211, $18, $98. You get the idea. And that's for vehicle one, the Corvette. The Camaro, we got the same coverage. All this says included. I'm assuming that's because I already have that on the Corvette. I did insure that with these guys first. Up until this year, I actually had the regular insurance on this kind of insurance on the Camaro, and I was paying I think $400 every 6 months, give or take, for the Camaro. So that's $800 a year. So now if we look what we're paying for the Camaro, we're at $299 annually. So I'm paying less for 1 full year of coverage than I was for 6 months of essentially the same coverage. So I'd say that's a pretty sweet deal. So that's why you should really consider that if you have some of these cars, and either an older one or some sort of exotic. Again, that you don't drive every day. And so that brings us to the sort of limitations, if you will, for your collector car insurance. So the Vet and the Camaro both have a mileage restriction on it. I'm only allowed to drive them, I believe, I want to say the Vet somewhere between 2,000 and 5,000 miles per year, and the Camaro I think is somewhere between 4,000 and 5,000 miles per year. However, I don't actually drive the Camaro anywhere near that. I drove it a lot more when I first bought it, but now that I have all these other cars, I really don't ever drive it. I'd say it maybe sees 1,000 miles a year on it, and the Corvette maybe sees 1,000 miles a year on it, and most of those miles are like taken to the car show. And I don't remember if the insurance company actually says, oh, you can actually take it to shows and those miles don't count, but the state of Missouri does say that. And what I mean by the state of Missouri is, this is the registration for my Corvette. So, 1993 Corvette. Okay, so I did buy it in 2010. Purchase date was 7/30 of 2010. But what I have on this car is, if you look down here at the registration, there's a registration fee I paid. It's called Year of Manufacture, Historic Plate, 0508. I paid $25.25 for that. A processing fee, $3.50 for a total of $28.75. Now look up here. For my current plate is non-expiring. So this plate never expires at this point now. I have actually registered my car as a quote-unquote historic vehicle, but what I actually have on it are year of manufacture plates. So in Missouri, when your car reaches 25 years of age, you can get these historic plates or year of manufacture plates on it. And what that essentially is an old-timey plate from your car's era. In the case of mine, this is kind of what the old 1993 plates look like. My car's covered up, so I can't show you, but it's essentially a red in color license plate from back in the day. The letters are white and reflective, and then you have to have a sticker on there from that year. So the car was 93, I have a 93 on there. My car was made in March of 93, so I actually went on my car, it actually says Mar, Missouri, the plate number, and then the green 93 sticker. And so that is the plate that's registered to my car. So if a cop gets behind me and runs the plate, they will it'll come back registered to my vehicle. Now I have been pulled over by a city cop because he was an idiot and doesn't understand that is legal. He's like, what's going on with that plate there? You know, you can't have that on, or I don't know. He was going through some rigmarole, and then I have to, you know, break out my registration, break out the statutes that talk about year of manufacture plates and historic plates on cars. So be prepared for that. You may get pulled over and them inquiring about your car. Now, that's just local city cops because they don't know anything about anything. But the staties, on the other hand, are a little more knowledgeable about traffic law, so they know that, oh yeah, this guy, he has a year manufacturer plate on his car because his car is 25 years old, and presumably it's 93, since we can get right behind him. And what's more is actually on my Corvette, not only do I have a plate like this, but I actually have a license plate frame that goes around it that says on it, 1993 Corvette. So then when you see this, 93, they know, oh, 93, 93, but sometimes they still don't get it. And as for the mileage, so the state of Missouri says you are allowed to drive 1,000 miles a year on a car that's registered like this. And that's whatever miles you want to use it for, but you are exempt from going to car shows or whatever miles you want to use it for, but you are exempt from going to car shows or museums or sort of learning historic type event things. And so since I do take my Corvette to 2 shows annually, I take it to Bloomington Gold and I take it to Fun Fest. I believe I have Bloomington Gold footage somewhere in my playlist. If you go to my, it might be under dash cam, so it might not be under the Corvette. It's either in my Corvette playlist or it's in my dash cam one of the road tours and stuff we take in Indy. And then I think I also might have one of Fun Fest too, which is in Effingham, Illinois. Those are the 2 Corvette shows I go to a year, and those are actually a majority of the mileage I put on the car. They go through those car shows, so those miles don't count. All the other miles I drive throughout the year, if my car breaks down, one of the other ones, and I use it as a spare, or I'm just decide to take it to work for whatever reason, then what you have to do is log those miles on a log sheet. And I guess before I show you that, I'll show you what the log sheet is. But the other thing I mentioned was the historic vehicle plate. It would be something like this. This is your historic vehicle plate. It's just essentially a modern looking Missouri plate, but it just says historic vehicle on it, as opposed to what your plate would have looked like had you registered the car when you first bought the car, when it was first made. I prefer to look at the historic vehicle plates myself, or the year manufacture plate. So if you had a 60-something plate, you'd get a plate on it with the 61 sticker. You know, so on and so forth in that manner. But now let's get on to what I'll show. Log sheet. Okay, and here's my log sheet from 2018, as you can see. So how this log sheet is Form 4012 for Missouri Department of Revenue, your historic vehicle log. So I always write the year. This is the date, the purpose for which the vehicle was driven, miles driven, to and from where. So what I like to do is I like to do beginning mileage, and then I write however many miles I drove that week or that month if I only drove it once a month or whatever. So you would notice this number plus this number equals this number, because this will be the beginning mileage for the next week, as you can see, 814. And then so now I have a column of miles driven I can add up at the end of the year for my accumulated total here. And then this is the beginning mileage. That way there's no discrepancies. That way, in case I do get pulled over and then the trooper asks to see my logbook, which you do have to keep in the car with you, I can prove no, so I go the extra mile and make sure I have a beginning mileage. That way he can't know. He can be like, are you sure you're not cooking these books? Yeah, I'm not cooking them. And the same with the 2019 is similar. Beginning mileage, total driven. Now, you'll notice what I did with the vet show, that I actually drove, but I didn't log the mileage. So what you would see is that this number plus this number does not equal this number, because you would take the 44 miles that I drove for, you know, personal reasons, added into that. But then I drove to the car show, so now the mileage that I'm starting here is going to be after the Corvette show, so all the mileage in between is essentially pleasure miles. Or not, you know, not pleasure miles, but the ones I'm exempted from, so that's why they're not logged. And then, you know, total mileage driven. And we haven't really gotten much done yet this year, 2020. As you can see, I've barely even driven the car. I put, you know, almost 80 miles on it this year. We're already like over halfway through the year. So I don't anticipate many mileage on the car this year. But that is the log sheet you have to keep. So just know that if you do, you know, want to get like collector car insurance, which I do recommend if you have cars that are old and you don't daily drive them. Just know that you have to, at least in Missouri, keep, you know, mileage if you're going to register it as an old. But I do recommend that because, you know, like I said, I have non-expiring plates on it. I paid $28 for the fee, and you are inspection exempt at that point. There's no safety inspections required anymore on the vet, and it was too old to need an emissions. But once the Camaro it's a 2010. So once it hits 25 years of age, I actually have a year manufacturer plate ready for it. I anticipated this. I thought ahead 25 years in the future when I first bought the car. So the plates that were registered back then that have the 10 sticker on it, I still have those plates with the 10 sticker. So they will be going on it once it hits 25 years of age. So once that's 25, I can take plates I already own, so I don't have to go to eBay and try to find some and hope they aren't registered to somebody else. I can take my plates from 2010, put them on my car, pay the $28 fee or whatever inflation is going to raise it up to at that point, and then that car will also be safety and emissions exempt. And, you know, short of all my other cars being destroyed, I don't anticipate having to drive it or the vet any length of time. So for that, I do recommend the collector / antique car insurance, but just note that mileage restriction's a thing, so I would only do if you have other cars you plan on driving around primarily, but I also do recommend it for you can set the value. So let's say you had, let's say it was 25 years, my BMW is 25 years old, I paid $2,500 for that car, but I put a lot of work into it to make it, a decent car. Like if I was to sell it, whatever the value of those cars are now, let's say a really good one like mine's $8 grand, I would get this insurance and then I would say $8 grand. That way if it gets smashed up, I get the $8 grand, not what the insurance says, like, oh, $4 grand, and then I can't buy another one for that price. And if I do buy one that's like for $4 grand or $2,500 or whatever they give for me, I'm gonna have to do all that work again. I'm gonna have to restore all that car. You want to know what kind of work I did to the BMW, go through the whole playlist and watch, but I would have to do all that over again. And I really don't want to do all that again. So for that, on these old cars, I do recommend the collector car insurance. So I hope this was valuable for you. Hope you watched this, Chuck, and that answers some of your questions about the collector car insurance. And then hopefully I got a little extra in there with the classic registration. And hopefully this helps some of you other guys out. If you were wondering, what is collector car insurance? What is it for an old car? Should I get it? Are there any disadvantages to having it? What are the advantages to having it? So now you know. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace.